All right, with any discussion about the Yom Adin, the Day of Judgment, and what we can do to increase our chances to get a positive judgment, so the first thing to do would be to try to contemplate exactly what the nature of the judgment is. Right? We can't give tips to get a better judgment if we don't really know what the judgment is. So the Gemara says something which is one of these things we learn, and there's little projects from when we're little kids and the like, that there are 3 books that are open on Rosh Hashana: the book of the Tzaddikim, the book of the Rishayim, the book of the Beinonim, the righteous, the wicked, the in-between, and the righteous get written to life, the wicked get written to death, and the Beinonim, the individual, the middle people, they wait till Yom Kippur. Now, the Rishonim all have a very, very basic question, which is, a tzaddik dies. Now, if a tzaddik is written for life, then the tzaddik really should never die, unless you assume that 1 year after being a tzaddik for 100 and so years, all of a sudden he ceased to be a tzaddik, and all of a sudden he got thrown in the book of death, which makes no sense. So the very first thing to do is we have to move beyond the very basic understanding of what does it mean to be a book of life and a book of death, and being righteous and not being righteous. So one of the approaches we're going to use for the first tip here is the approach of many of the Rishonim, which is to say, life in the Gemara refers to a person who is living a proper life. He's called alive. A person who's a tzaddik, when they are not alive anymore, are still called living, because they live on in the next world. They don't ever die. Like we say, Yaakov Avinu, right? Yaakov never died. What do you mean never died? Because we say a tzaddik doesn't die. And the flip side, we say when it comes to a wicked person, even when they're alive, they're really dead. So with that background, we could possibly look at the 3 books slightly different with one other background. What does it mean to be rewarded in this world? If a mitzvah transcends this world, the fulfillment of a commandment is greater than anything this world can have, so you can't really be rewarded in this world. In fact, the Gemara says that there is no reward for a mitzvah in this world. So the obvious question is, but we say in Shema every day, and we say in, if you look at the Torah, it's all over the place, that we are rewarded and we are punished based on our conduct. We just had in the Tochacha, with brachos and klalos. So where do you reconcile? So we can explain like this. Everything is how it gets you to Olam Haba, how it gets you to your ultimate destination. When you get something in this world as a reward, it means that you are being given greater opportunity to enhance your ability to go to the proper next world. So if you're given health, you're given money, you're given family, those are all tools in order to increase your Olam Haba. However, if a person is wicked, they might also be given money, but that money could be given to them to mess them up, and actually the gift of the reward is actually the punishment. So what it means to say, by way of introduction, there are 3 books that are open. The book of the righteous, that means the people who are predominantly good, they are signed in the book of Olam Haba. That means that everything that's happening to them is being given to them to enhance their position in the next world. Now, the person has to eventually die because the tzaddik can't live forever. But that's not a contradiction to being written in the book of life. On the contrary, that's where his life really starts getting fun. That's the next world. And the wicked person, who the Rishonim also ask, we see wicked people live. We don't see every wicked person drop dead. Otherwise there'd have to be new wicked people every year. Yet we see people are wicked for year after year after year. But it's not a contradiction, because they are signed off for death. Their reward is being given in this world to drive them from the next world. So now we see the 3 books that are open. If you're righteous, it means you're alive. That means everything that's coming to you is to channel you towards the next world. If you're, chas v'shalom, if a person is wicked, what's coming to them is to drive them from the next world. Even while they're in this world, they're still dead because they're not connected to the next world. Now, in light of this, when we approach Rosh Hashana and we're looking for a good din, a good judgment, really what we're saying is we want Hashem to provide us what we need to help our situation. We don't want things that will be difficult tests for us to overcome. We want things that will enhance and be like catalysts for us to gain more and more olam haba. That's really what we are looking for. So here comes our first tip. One would think, therefore, the best way to go about this, and it's not a bad way, but it's not going to be the way I'm going to suggest because you could figure this out without coming here. And that would be to ask Hashem, please give me what I need to enhance my olam haba. So that would be a good thing to ask for. That's a good tip. Right off the bat, you're no longer asking for health, wealth, and money and whatever for its sake because it has no value on its own. Its value, and it does have value, but its value is in getting you to the next world. But you're not, so if you're asking Hashem, give me what I need to enhance myself, so that's good. But again, you didn't need to come here for that. That's a little obvious. Here comes our first tip. Instead of focusing on what you think you need to enhance your trek to the next world, look back at what Hashem gave you the previous year that helped you and say thank you for that, which means a change of focus here. Instead of approaching Rosh Hashanah with your bucket list of what I need, and again, it's a lishma, it's a Hashem-oriented bucket list. No one is going, we're not talking to people who are going, I want $1 million because I want to live it up, right? That's not on the table. I want $1 million because I want to give tzedakah, I want to live with peace of mind, I want to be able to learn as much as I can, I want to do chesed, whatever that is, that's a given. But instead of the focus being, Hashem, give me this, that, because I think this is what will help me serve you better. Let's, instead of looking forward, look back and say, what did I get over the last year that actually helped me? And the idea here would be like this. In reality, no matter how well you think you know what's going to help you, and you can ask accordingly, the truth is that Hashem actually knows what is good for you better than you know. So therefore, if you're given the two choices of asking Hashem for what you think you need, or saying to Hashem, hey look, this is what you decided for me, that probably is good. So you know what? I'm actually going to take the time out to thank you for it and say, thank you Hashem, what you did in the past. Now, on the most basic level, if any parent will easily relate to this, if your kid is going to come up to you and say, thank you for doing X, Y, Z, the motivation is going to be to do it again. Where if the kid never says thank you for X, Y, Z, but always says, I want A, B, C, then the idea becomes you're just always wanting. Now, again, we're talking about wanting for a good reason. We're talking about being properly motivated in what you want. But still, the approach to Hashem, and we are told to relate to Hashem as a father relates to a child. So you tell Hashem, thank you, and Hashem says, oh, this one, he actually recognizes that I'm doing something to help his avodas Hashem. Maybe I'm going to help him out coming forward. Whereas the other person, I helped this guy the whole year, and all I got was a generic modem. Okay, thank you Hashem, thank you. Okay, it was good. It was not from people. But when did he sit down and think, hey, you know what? Hashem gave me that, and that allowed me to do that mitzvah. Hashem provided me that. Oh, now you're recognizing what I'm doing for you, says Hashem. So now I know that you are one to whom it pays to give you those things, because you're going to be someone who's going to recognize that. To take it one step deeper, whenever we get anything from Hashem, by definition, that actually comes at a cost to our Olam Haba. Because our Olam Haba, our next world, is our connection to Hashem. Hashem is a giver and not a taker, by definition. As much as we take without giving, we end up being not like Hashem, and therefore can't be said to be connecting to Hashem. So when Hashem provides us something to connect to Him, but we take that something, then it becomes a double-edged sword type of situation. We are taking in order to come close to Hashem, but the act of taking is drawing us away from Hashem. How do we solve that? It's very easy. If we give back the hakara hatov, the recognition of the good, if we connect that gift back to Hashem, so then we are no longer a taker, we're more of a barterer. We are trading with Hashem. You're giving us what we need to serve you, and we are recognizing that. This should be done, obviously, all year long. But if we're going to come to Rosh Hashana and we want to do something unique to tip the scales, so the first thing we can do is, above and beyond the requests we make going forward, if you take, whether it be at any point during davening or any time during the day, it makes no difference, during Tekiyah Shofar, whenever you can steal for yourself a few moments to contemplate, what did Hashem do for me? Not what I think Hashem should do for me, but what did He do for me? So that is automatically a recipe for a positive din, because then Hashem is going to say, this one, it pays to give to them to help their Olam Haba, because it's not a double-edged sword. It doesn't take away when I give to them, because they thank me for it and they use it to go forward. So that's our first point. The next point we want to get into is, on a little deeper level, if we look at the way the Mishnah describes the judgment of Rosh Hashana, something is going to jump out at us as like one of these things don't belong. Like the old Sesame Street things, they had, which one of these things don't belong. So the Mishnah in Rosh Hashana says that the world is judged in 4 times during the year. On Pesach, the grain is judged. On Shavuos, the fruit of the trees are judged. On Sukkot, the water is judged. And on Rosh Hashanah, so you would expect it to say life and death, man is judged, but it doesn't say that. What does it say? It says that all the people in the world pass individually before Hashem. As it says, Hashem created all the minds and He understands what everyone is doing. So it's very puzzling. On Rosh Hashanah, we're not being judged for something. The description of the judgment is not what the judgment is for, but it's how the judgment is happening. Right? Sukkot, we're judged for water. Pesach, we're judged for grain. Shavuos, we're judged for the tree. And on Rosh Hashanah, we go in front of Hashem for judgment. Now, it doesn't say what we're judged for. So it needs to be understood at a level that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the judgment is the process of judgment. Okay, now it gets a little deep, so we have to wrap our heads around this. When we say we're being judged for everything, and we are, that is the outgrowth, that is the product of the judgment which we're being judged for going to judgment. Now, so what does that mean? So let's back up a little bit and try to figure out, why are we being judged on Rosh Hashanah? So this is pretty clear amongst all the commentators that we are following the opinion in the Gemara that Adam HaRishon was created on Rosh Hashanah, and he was judged on Rosh Hashanah, and therefore his descendants are judged as well. But we need to have a better insight as what does it mean that Adam was judged. because the simple idea is that he was judged for the sin of the Eitz Hadas. Is that to say that had he not eaten, he wouldn't have been judged? So at Rosh Hashana became a judgment day because he did something to need judgment? So others learn that when we say that Adam was judged on Rosh Hashana, it's not the pshat that he was judged for what he did. He was judged whether or not he should exist at all. So there's a medrash, it's a fascinating medrash, that says when Hashem wanted to create man, and this is implied in the Torah because it describes the creation of man in the plural. We will make man, na'aseh Adam. So Rashi says that Hashem consulted with his heavenly, aides, advisors, should we create man or not? So the way the Medrash says is that there were four people, four angels. There was kindness, there was righteousness, there was truth, and there was peace. Righteousness and kindness stood up and said, man should be created, he's going to do kind and righteous things. Peace got up and said, man should not be created because he's going to make wars and quarrel. And truth got up and said, you can't create man because he lies all the time. So you had a stalemate, 2 against 2. So the Medrash says, what did Hashem do? Hashem took truth, threw him to the ground, and said, it's 2 against 1, and man will be created. So then the Medrash itself asks, was this a joke? What's the point of having advisors if you just throw one away when you don't like what he's saying? So the Medrash says, no, that's not the pshat at all. Hashem took truth, threw it down to the ground, because Hashem was showing that truth is not meant to come from heaven. Truth is meant to come from earth. In other words, the creation is not supposed to be the reflection of the absolute truth. That is Hashem. He's the absolute truth. The creation, on the contrary, is clouded and shrouded in falseness. But it is only from that falseness that the truth, the real truth, can be chosen by a creation. So according to this, what Hashem was saying is, you're right, if we leave it up here, then it's 50-50, we can't create man. But if I tell truth to go down and have man declare that Hashem is emes, so then the truth will come up from the ground. It's not up here. We can create and let man declare the truth. All right, so what does this mean practically? So we won't get it until we have one more Gemara, and then we can put it together. The Gemara says that every time a baby is born, so we're all familiar, I think, with the first part about this. The baby is taught Torah in the womb of the mother, and then right after the baby is born, he is hit on the cheek, and he forgets the Torah. Okay, that much we all know. The Gemara then says, and the baby is made to take an oath. And the oath is, you'll be a tzaddik and not a rasha. So asks the commentators, what kind of oath is this? We all took an oath at Har Sinai. We already are all bound by an oath. What's this additional oath? So the Meforshim explain, what's going on here is that every baby who is born is a recreation of the original creation of Adam HaRishon. And the original creation of Adam HaRishon, there was a doubt. Should he be created or should he not be created? And every baby, there's a doubt. Should you be created or should you not be created? And what the baby needs to do is say, I am going to choose righteousness. I am going to proclaim the truth from the ground. And if I do that, then I deserve to be created. According to this approach, we can say like this. When you get judged, when I get judged on Rosh Hashana, the idea is, yes, ultimately, everything about our lives will be judged. But that's all secondary. The real judgment is a recreation of the judgment that went on when we were born and the judgment that went on when Adam HaRishon was created, which is, it's you and Hashem. There's no world around you. Everyone is an individual. Everyone deserves b'shvili nivra olam. The world was created for me. The fact that we exist as a society of Jews, that's secondary. We'll discuss that in about 2 minutes. That's the next step. The original step is it's me and Hashem. It's Adam was created alone. Chava is only afterwards. It's Adam and it's Hashem. It's me and it's Hashem. It's you and it's Hashem. And you are given a choice, which is you can live your life and ignore the reality, which is it's me and Hashem. That's all that's real. Everything else is just Hashem's creation. The only reality that you internally have is you and your Creator. Every Rosh Hashana, every baby that's born, that's what's going on. You go as an individual and you stand alone in front of Hashem and you declare either I'm with this, I'm on board, or I'm not on board. You're either in the book of the righteous, meaning you're going along with Hashem's plan, or you're not going along with Hashem's plan. Hashem's plan is to recognize the truth, and the truth is that Hashem is the only truth, and we are the creation, and we are alone, except we're not alone, because we're intimately connected to our Creator. That is Malchias, Zichronos, and Shofros. That's what we do on Rosh Hashana. The Machzor is not filled with our requests for life and everything we need to serve Hashem, because that's all the next level. There's something more basic than that. And that is, are you in or are you out? Are you going to proclaim truth from the ground, or are you not going to proclaim truth from the ground? Are you going to live your life as if you're connected to Hashem or not? The tip for a good judgment, once we understand that the judgment is to declare that the world deserves to be created for me and me alone, because Adam was created as an individual. You have to see yourself, I have to see ourselves as an individual, that we are worthy for the entire creation to be for us, and it's demanded of us that we recognize that, because only when we recognize how critically important we are, because Hashem created us, and we have that connection to Hashem. When we realize that importance, and we say, look, it's in our hands to either justify the creation of man or to, chas v'shalom, declare that this was one big mistake, that creates such a sense of purpose and such a sense of connection. The Rambam famously describes it as everyone is required to view themselves as if they are right in the middle. One act, and we're on the good side. One act the other way, we're on the bad side. And then the Rambam says everyone has to look as if the entire world is equal. One act, and it all gets destroyed. But one act, and it's all there. When we stand Tekiyas Shofar, when we stand at Musaf, and we are davening, it's that original creation, that moment of birth, that moment of creation. When we say, Hashem is the king, we are the creation, Hashem has a relationship with us, that's Zichronos, He cares what we do, and the shofar serves as the way to crown Hashem as the king. You blow shofar to coronate a king, and the shofar represents the Torah, in which Hashem formed this connection, and ultimately the shofar represents the Yemos HaMashiach, when Hashem will finally complete the task, what this world was meant to do. When we stand there and we realize that we are an entire creation, the whole creation was worth it for us, and we are there to make the creation viable by declaring Hashem is the king, letting the truth sprout up from us down below, and recognizing that Hashem cares what we do, and Hashem remembers what we do because we have an intimate relationship, and we do it through the shofar, then everything else falls into place, because everything else is an expression of that. to connect the first two things, once we declare that we're on board, we're part of Hashem's plan, so that's ultimately to reward us in the next world. So then naturally, everything will follow to enhance us in our quest for the next world. Our final tip, so we'll have three, our final tip is going to be, but man was not left alone. As much as man was created as an individual, and as much as we are meant to relate to that at the high point of creation, the initial point of creation, the fact is Hashem said, Lo tov lios adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone, because man can't achieve his purpose, her purpose, alone. It has to be with a family, it has to be with a community, it has to be with a society at large. It's interesting that some of the Meforshim asked the following question, which is really it's a pretty basic question, which is, how can there be 2 days of Rosh Hashana? Hashem is judging us. This is not like, where the jury has to come back the next day, the judge can't get the job done in 1 day. Like, why does it take 2 days to judge? And more than that is, for much of Jewish history, there weren't 2 days of Rosh Hashana. There was only 1 day of Rosh Hashana. So what changed? All of a sudden, Hashem needs 2 days to judge? What's going on the second day of Rosh Hashana? So the Meforshim want to explain that there's 2 days of Rosh Hashana because there really are two elements to the judgment. The first element is like we spoke about before. You are a world by yourself. Each of us we're here. That means the whole world is for us. We are important enough, our actions are critical enough to declare a purpose in creation, or chas v'shalom, to say the world shouldn't have been created. That is each of our individual greatness as a human being. But then there is the fact that we do live practically in a community, in families, in Klal Yisrael. So the Meforshim explained the first day of judgment. That's when Hashem looks at you, you're all alone. How would you act when you're alone? There is no one looking over your shoulder. There's no one who's going to nudge you if they don't see you doing something right. It's just you at your core. Do you want to be connected to Hashem? Do you want to declare Hashem as the king? Or do you want to live a life of falsehood, objective falsehood, where you make a disconnect between the Creator and His creation? But then there's a second din. And that second din is, how do you then, in so much as the world could have been created for you alone, but the facts are you share the world with a lot of other people. How do you make the world a better place for everyone else? How are you necessary for other people's growth and service of Hashem? Are you the person that takes care of many other people? Then by definition, you are much more indispensable to Hashem. Because Hashem has a plan. He's distributing everything for the ultimate goal of us all reaching Olam Haba, for each of us individuals who the whole world was created for, to reach our purpose. But none of us can do that alone. So the more things that you are critical to their functioning, the more important you are to the klal. And the more important you are to the klal in this second judgment, the better off you are going to be. Because there is a klal Yisrael, there is an ultimate plan. Man was created alone, but then there was a second creation, family, klal Yisrael community. The more you are essential to other people's success, the better your din is going to be, because you're just more valuable to the cause. So someone who sits alone, now if he's learning Torah, so that in itself helps the world at large. But it's not comparable to learning Torah in a group and inspiring people and teaching people. If a person is giving tzedakah, so he's doing something. But when it's done in a group and it's done to lots of people and it inspires others and it goes on for everything, the more you are useful to other people, the better off you are in this second day of judgment. All right, so why originally it was only 1 day? Why did there eventually have to be 2 days? So some explain that during the first Beis Hamikdash, we were at a high enough level that everyone could have sufficed being judged on their own merit. They didn't even need to have that second judgment on the communal merit. After the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed and we went into Galus, so then it was harder for each individual to, on his own, really fully merit all that he merited. He needed the zechus of the community at large. So now we always have 2 days of Rosh Hashana. But whatever it is, once we understand that there's these two elements of the judgment, so the tips become very, very simple to give over, because we get what the judgment's all about. On one day, we're focused on us, how great we are, how important we are, how we literally can define whether or not mankind deserves to be created on an individual level. How do we relate to Hashem in the depths of our heart, in the resources of our brain, our subconscious, when there is no world, no one looking at us? It's just us and Him. Can we declare that truth from the ground, thus making the world worthy of creation? And then we take to the next level. How can we make ourselves more valuable to others? How can we inspire? How can we do chesed? How can we help so that when Hashem looks at us and says, that person, he thanks me for what I helped him do his olam haba. That's a check. And that person recognizes who he is and how important he is. That's a check. And that person, how would I replace him? Because if he wasn't there, I'd have to move so many different chess pieces here to make up all the different chasadim that he does. That becomes the three-pronged approach that we are going to suggest as tips for tipping the scales. The recognition of the very first thing, which is the saying thank you, not just asking for what we want, but thanking for what we have. The recognition of who we are and what is expected of us and what we can accomplish. The true relationship we have with Hashem that's really uniquely ours, and how valuable we are to Klal Yisrael. How much can we contribute? How difficult would it be to replace us, so to speak, or to replace what we contribute? So Hashem, shower us with what we need, because we have proven that we use it to help your people. If one can excel on these three things, so it's a guarantee for a ksiva v'chasima tova.